Chris Cuomo here. Welcome to News Nation. This is where right and left come to be reasonable. So let's talk affordability. All right, everybody's throwing the word around now. Why? Because they know the power of the outrage behind it. It is the word of the day. It should be the word of the day. It is the major economic issue in the country and has been. Gas and groceries were the mantra during the last election, remember? But not only are they not better a year into the Trump administration, they are the least of the problem. About half of us can survive a $1,000 emergency. 7 in 10 cannot afford to buy a home. 1 in 3 can buy a car outright. A young college grad, that group, they have a much higher unemployment rate than the rest of the country. More are living at home after college than pretty much ever. Carrying 40 grand or more in debt is not unusual. So affordability does not mean the stock market. It does not mean the economy generically. Okay, this is not about the rising tide lifting all boats. It's that some boats are speeding along and others are sinking. Okay? So it's not the stock market, it's everything else. The easy part is identifying the problem. And the populist movements on the right and the left have that. Okay? And the tariffs have made it even more obvious. The hard part, the part that they want to avoid, the part where it gets weird, is what to do about it. On the left, socialism is increasingly an answer in this odd alliance on the far left populist movement with fundamentalist anti-Zionist culture plays. Now, why would socialism and affordability and that go together? Because coalitions are a big part of populism. You saw that on MAGA also. You had fiscal conservatives with far-right culture warriors. Why? They weren't naturally allies until they were, okay? So they have time, though, on the left to get it right. Their main commodity right now is outrage at the status quo, and that is very powerful, especially when the status quo is owned by who? MAGA and this administration. You know, MAGA can keep saying, oh, it's Biden's economy, but nobody believes you because that's BS. Gallup now finds capitalism is declining in favorability. Socialism is growing in America. Why? It's not because people are political scientists. It's not because they're researching the terms. It's because they want change. It's not form. It is function. And here's what I mean by that. Look, I believe in capitalism, but I have said for many, many years, capitalism is about how you do it. Capitalism without any conscience is just greed. And right now we have a system that is really crony capitalism that rewards the top and hopes they reward the rest. The system takes care of the top. Trump got this outrage when he was running, and he used it. If affordability is your issue, vote Republican. Energy costs, as an example, are plummeting, getting close to $2 a gallon. When energy goes down, everything else follows, and it has. President DJT should have spell-checked it. He also should have fact-checked it. Gas prices are at the same level they were last year. Many grocery prices are up. Of the 6 food categories that the BLS, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, tracks, 4 of them are up since Trump took office. Beef, bananas, milk, chicken. Eggs are down, but you know what? I don't want to hear it. They're not down because you did something about it. All right? They were up for artificial reasons that you didn't give any credit for when it was Biden. Why? They had a huge bird flu thing that went on. It crushed supply and spiked prices. So now the bird flu is passed, supply is back up, and demand is down, in part because people are learning to go without because they don't have the money. So yeah, the price is down, but is that a good sign based on why? 7 in 10 of you are saying you're spending more on groceries this year. And I'll tell you something, food matters, of course, but it's the easy part to deal with politically in America. The real affordability are the big tickets, housing, healthcare. And they're like almost the same, okay? And for a lot of people, one is higher than the other. You know, that's how expensive healthcare has gotten. The shutdown fight over Obamacare matters, but it's just a window into that. The amount of money they're talking about with the subsidies is nothing compared to the overall problem with costs in this system. This year, healthcare costs have risen 7%. Have you gotten your letter yet? I get my health insurance for my family through my union, SAG-AFTRA. Prices are going up. And that's with us having all these numbers to negotiate, right? Americans have already been paying 2.5 times more on health care than other wealthy nations. They're now being told by people like me that the government is giving the third biggest break in health care, Medicare, Medicaid, then who? The big employers. They get a massive hundreds of billions in tax breaks for providing health care to employees. But what's happening? The policies that they offer are covering less, and they're costing more. But the stock market is soaring, and salaries under the top are not soaring. So the problem is real, the outrage is real, affordability is real. The challenge is the fix. Why isn't either side saying, here's why things are expensive, here's what we can do? You know, again, I'm doing this, out of humor, not out of contempt. But when Bernie says the top 1% and the oligarchs and the da-da-da-da, no more oligarchs, no. But what are you going to do about it? We should have universal single pay. What does that mean? How do you pay? And what would that mean for costs? What would it mean for corporations? It's complicated, and he doesn't want to deal with that part. And I get why. This part makes you famous, the outrage. He cares. But does he dare to care enough to fix? No, that's why he didn't win. Right? And that is the challenge. The ACA needs to be tweaked. It doesn't reach enough people. It doesn't have enough choice. And the cost structure isn't efficient enough. What will you do? Tax the rich, says one side. Tax cuts for the rich, says the other side. They are equally simple and insufficient. Why? Because look, the tax rates are already enough to be able to support the right changes if you got the rules right, which we haven't. So you've got health care, which is only going up, and there is not some home run answer on either side that I've heard. People don't even want to talk about answers. They just want to talk about who to blame, and you've been okay with that. In the last 5 years, housing, it's crushing us. Rents are up 40%. Home prices are up 30%. Why? Supply. It's been a shortage since 2008. Why? Because construction's gotten so expensive. And financing has gotten expensive. How? What do you do about it? Crickets. If both parties refuse to answer these questions, hopefully, well, here's the bad news and the good news. Bad news, if the main players on both sides don't get after this, the populist movements will become completely dominant, and we will be in a fringe fight. That's it. That's how it's shaping up. Now, the good news is, I think that the idea that many are floating, certainly I am, you should not vote for any incumbent. You should be voting for other people who want to get in there and do something specific. And I think that's going to catch on. Now, it's hard. The parties have all the power and all the money, and they control the process. But if it's just about which side sucks worse, at some point, how many of you are going to say, you both suck, I want something else? Now, right now, we haven't gotten there. We get stalled out of that by the populist sentiments of MAGA on one side and now what I'm calling MEGA on the other. But here's my problem that you got to see, and this is why I'm taking my time on this tonight. My problem with MAGA is that it's all problem, no fix, right? That it's exploiting people's outrage, which is legitimate. The grievance is legitimate. That's why you shouldn't have called them deplorables, except for those far-right culture warriors who have some ugly ideas. Same thing on the left. But they are now being frustrated again, and that feeds hopelessness and disaffection, and I hate that. Now, the main problem for most of you in the center and the left was what? Project 2025, that MAGA was a Trojan horse, right? That they were going to get rid of the entitlement programs, Medicaid, Medicare, force in all these judges, get rid of reproductive rights, all this hit list, right? And what was the defense? Oh, no, yeah, he doesn't even really know those people. And, oh, yeah, but all the people involved with Project 2025 are the people around this administration. Yeah, but it's not really like that. And now we're seeing that there are echoes of it in what he does. And you can say that those were political policy choices and that people wanted them, or you can see him as scary. Why don't I hear you saying the same thing about MAGA's adversary on the left? Why? The same thing is happening, and it's bigger. And there are more people and there's more outrage. That's why I go from MAGA to MEGA, because MEGA is bigger, right? Democratic Socialist of America, DSA. The DSA wants to take over the Democratic Party, period. How do I know? They say so, okay? Now, I don't fault them for that. Every party should want to win, okay? A rose by any other name, right? Dr. King told us all about the concerns about socialism and what it is. You can call it socialism, you can call it communism, you can call it democratic socialism. It is what it is, all right? So the blueprint goes. Now it's out. What do they want? They want to take over the Democratic Party. They want candidates who support getting rid of borders, abolishing the police, redistributing land and wealth, and freezing rents. And now, is this saleable? Oh, yeah. This is going to sound good to a lot of people. A lot of good. A lot of good to a lot of people. But it's going to hurt people when they don't get delivered. Just like how the Republicans did when they cut Medicaid and Medicare and, you know, who it hurts. All right? Now, the other part of what they're asking for, because of this unholy alliance that socialists are in with these fundamentalist, anti-Zionist types, is that in that manifesto, or whatever, mission statement, whatever you want to call it, is that they have anti-Israeli demands, like arresting Netanyahu and IDF soldiers, investigating real estate agents to see if they're from Israel, divesting city pension funds from any Israeli bonds, ending city contracts with companies that do business with Israel. In the city with one of the largest Jewish populations, 11% of the population. So here's where it gets tricky. If you're all sell and no fix, you're going to make mistakes eventually. The president hears the affordability call, so he wants to get into it. What is his solution? Gas, groceries, student debt, housing, health care, discounts on Ozempic.
This will slash the cost of Wegovy from $1,350 a month to ultimately $250 a month. $1,350 to $250. Did I do a good job?
Yeah, but for who? This is not high on the list of affordability concerns from the people who were organizing against you on the left or who supported you on the right. This is, again, playing to the few over the concerns of the many. Slap whoever gave you this idea to make Ozempic your calling card after these elections. Now, look, you got diabetes and you need this. You got a health condition and you need this. Great. I hope you can get it more easily and less expensively. It's not what I'm talking about. You know why this drug has gotten so expensive and so in demand. It's for people who don't have those kinds of conditions, who have a problem eating less and moving more. It is not what affordability is about. And you know who knows that? The president.
I call it the fat pill or the fat drug. Sometimes it works, I guess, for people. The ones I've seen, it hasn't worked so well. I got a lot of friends, they're fat. They said, yeah, I lost some weight. I said, you don't look it to me. A highly neurotic, brilliant businessman, seriously overweight, and he takes the fat shot. So, President, could I ask you a question? What? I'm in London, and I just paid for this damn fat drug I take. I said, it's not working.
I mean, look, he thought it was a joke, but now the joke's on him, okay? But we're in the same place, and that's where we begin tonight. I wanted to take the time tonight because this is what we do here that others don't. I'm not making you a pitch, okay? I'm not selling you an agenda. I'm helping us be on the same page about what the issue is and being open to what we need to make happen. Now, somebody who can be part of figuring out a solution structure joins us now. Administrator of Medicare and Medicaid Services, the doctor who always seems to be in the right place at the right time, Dr. Mehmet Oz. First things first, what happened on that stage, and is the guy all right?
Gentleman's okay, and when you're standing that long in the Oval Office, folks sometimes get lightheaded. He collapsed. We put an IV in. He got excellent medical care, and he's on his way home to his wife already. So one little lesson, by the way, you don't have to be a doctor to know this. If someone's about to collapse, catch them, because the injury is not from what caused them to collapse. It's because they banged their head or hurt themselves. So just get under the person. Doesn't look like they're going to make it, wobbly knee, and grab them and bring them to the ground carefully, lift their legs up, and wait for help. But since we're talking about helping crises and issues that are problematic, you touched on the healthcare expenses that are dramatically increasing in this country. The reason that we have to actually increase spending in Medicaid under the One Big Beautiful Bill, there's no cut, by the way. It's increased $200 billion of spending in this program for the next 10 years. The reason the president did not want to touch Medicare at all, and he will not touch Medicare, is because these programs are growing at the 7% rate, roughly, that you're describing. And that's a lot faster than the GDP. So the affordability issue you mentioned becomes problematic. My job is to make sure the $1.75 trillion that we spend on Medicare, Medicaid, the Affordable Care Act, is spent wisely. And the only way to do this without just throwing money at a growing problem is to get to the root cause of what's increasing costs. And Chris, take a step back. The number one thing we can change pretty readily that drives more than a quarter of the total healthcare expenses is obesity and obesity-related conditions. So I know this is going to blow your mind, but by taking the price down, you take billions of dollars out of the healthcare system, money that's been spent by beneficiaries in Medicare. Medicaid patients don't even get the drug usually. There's a moral hazard there because vulnerable populations who die disproportionately from obesity because their food's terrible and they don't have the luxury of a personal trainer, they suffer unnecessarily because they don't get access to the drug. The number one zip code for this drug right now is the Upper East Side of Manhattan, 10021. And so we have to make these drugs affordable for moral reasons. But if we're able to do this correctly, and this is important, we will actually, within 2 years from when that ink dried in the Oval Office today, within 2 years, we will actually save the American taxpayer money for the first time maybe on health care because we'll be driving down health care costs by giving folks access to a medication that with downstream benefits, not just from the obesity. That's not the problem. It's not looking better for swimsuit season. It's less diabetes, less hypertension, less heart attacks, less renal failure, less dementia. All those problems begin to diminish at markedly higher levels than we would ever have expected. So this is one of those foundational elements that we have to address. Most favored nation pricing is simple. It is wrong for Americans to spend 3 times more for the exact same drug made in the same factory with the same bottle and the same packaging in this country versus Europe. No more global freeloading. We're going to pay the same price as other developed countries and save American lives while we're at it.
All right. Look, you always get to make your case here, Doc, because I like you, but also that's how we do it. Let's put to the side that we do not know that people without the specified conditions of what these drugs were developed for are going to be fine taking the way so many are taking it right now. We don't know yet. They're still studying it. You know that. We've talked about it. Yep. So let's put that to the side. This is not the root cause of obesity in this country, nor is it a magic pill to get rid of the obesity. It's the quality of the food. It's the amount of money that they have to take care of themselves. This is a rich people problem who are taking this Ozempic and Wegovy. I'm with you on obesity. I just don't think this is what gets us past what the endemic and systemic problems are that drive it. And if you want to address affordability, I do not think starting with Ozempic is going to make the American majority feel like you get their problem.
Chris, it's a belt and suspenders approach. Obesity is not a deficiency of GLP drugs. There's no question. It's driven by the food that is remarkably deficient in nutrients but rich in calories.
I know. That
folks who are vulnerable have to consume. That's the food they get when they have SNAP benefits. That's often been the food that we give them on Medicare Advantage plans. We're changing that. That's what those SNAP waivers are about.
Good.
It's about physical activity. You have to have the energy to work out. When you're working all the time, it's hard to do. And at its very core, things as simple as sleep are remarkably impactful in the weight you put on. But obesity is a national scourge, but it's especially a problem for underserved populations, and they never had access to a plan B. Because if you can figure it out and lose weight and look like a gazelle the way you do, fantastic. But most people struggle, especially as they age, and if we don't help them with whatever options are out there, especially with novel technologies and innovation, creating pill versions. I learned today, by the way, share it with your audience, when I cornered one of the pharma executives in the Oval Office, but they believe by March, they will have a pill that you can take instead of the injection. Suddenly, these become a crutch that's possibly used by a lot of Americans. We think 1 in 3 Americans could use these, again, to get back to their playing weight, their fighting weight, to get fit and strong, and they can flourish in life. And then hopefully when they get there and pick up some lifestyle skills on the way, they can maintain their weight at a healthier location. But right now, we are twice as expensive as any other country in our health care because we are twice as fat as every other country. We're 10 times more obese than the Japanese. 10 times.
I'm with you. I'm with you, Doc. One of the reasons I could never do your job, forget about the education and the pedigree, is I also don't have the benevolence. Okay, I think people are fat because you got a lot of people who are undisciplined and lazy. Now, you also have a lot of people who are fat who are poor because they're completely stressed out. They're working 2 jobs. They can't afford good food. Their places are food deserts. And they're worried about putting a roof over their heads and what they're going to do with their kids. And the anxiety levels are crazy, which is why we're getting more and more open to crazy ideas. But you are here to make the case. You are welcome to, and I'll talk to you about this again, Doc. Thank you for doing it. If I don't speak to you before,
one last
have a happy
plea.
Thanksgiving. Go ahead.
Same to you, my friend. But President Trump was brave. He took on the entire pharma industry. This was the 4th of these most favored nation deals. We had the leading company in America, leading company in Europe, all the fertility drugs, now obesity. He's marching through all these companies. And as a president, to be able to take out tens of billions of dollars out of the healthcare budget by just renegotiating better rates, that's pretty impressive. You got to give the president kudos for making a difference, at least in this area.
100%. You make things that are needed by American people more affordable, especially when people are just gouging us. That is a good thing. I don't care if you're right, left, or reasonable. I just don't want it to be the fat pill, as he calls it, or the fat drug. I just think they should be the drugs that matter most to the most people. But it is good if America gets better deals, and I appreciate you pointing it out, and I'm happy to hear it. Dr. Oz, I'll talk to you soon.
Bless you.
All right, 4 minutes and 35 seconds. Listen, you can come after me about how I feel about people who take Ozempic. I'm not judging them. Whatever gets you to a better place. But I will say this, and Dr. Oz knows this, because he's a fitness and wellness guy. You're not going to take Ozempic and all of a sudden be strong and fit. You're going to drop a ton of weight. You're going to drop a lot of body mass and muscle, too. If you're not working out and eating right and recovering right, but you're taking that drug and you think you're going to be at your fighting weight, you're fooling yourself. Now, MAGA is the right populist movement, okay? They had Project 2025. Now we have reaction formation on the left. I call it mega because it's bigger in every way than MAGA was, especially outrage, because MAGA is now in power, right? The Democratic Socialists are motivating a lot of it. They have a playbook too, like Project 2025. It has scary things in it also. But I don't think people on the left are as worried as they should be. Enter the 2 guests we have coming up. They are twins, but they have different ideas about things to a degree, and I love them both. The Crassenstein brothers. Do you know them? Oh, ho! You're going to love them. Look them up on social media in the break. Next. The populist movement on the left, what's being called Democratic Socialism. The Cultural Alliance, with what I see as suggestive of some fundamentalist tendencies, the policies of how to break what crony capitalism has become. Why is the left excited? All right, let's bring in Ed and Brian Krassenstein. Now, these guys, I love them on social media, active, okay? Positive podcasters, but they can fight too. I have them come on at the same time, not because they're twins, but they need each other in order to even come close for what's coming their way over here. No, fellas, thank you very much. Congratulations on the wins. Look, I wasn't surprised. Mamdani was a prohibitive favorite over my brother, especially with Sliwa there. New Jersey, Virginia, I'd say the same thing, but a good night for Democrats if you make it lead to something else. Let's deal with the easy part for me first, then the trickier part. Ed, I am not an Islamophobe, period. And it is not Islamophobic to say Zoran said a lot of stupid shite that he shouldn't have to get popular early on in his career. Now as mayor, he better back away from it and be careful about who he has around him. That doesn't make me an Islamophobe. It makes me reasonable.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think he said some things that he regrets saying, and I think he says some things that a lot of people are outraged about in his past. But I think people change, and I think people's views change. I think people say things for different reasons. And what he said during his campaign, I don't think, I think he didn't say anything wrong, at least not in my view.
Well, it's what he doesn't say, Brian, right? I think it's a layup to say, to the extent that anybody is using globalize the intifada to mean anywhere you can find Jews and Zionists, take the war to them, I'm not for that. And he gets tricky with things that scare Jews. But the election is over. We'll see how he handles it now. But we all know, I don't have to tell you guys, why Jewish brothers and sisters are nervous about this guy. Now let's talk about the economics. When I watch you, Brian, on social media, and people are coming after you, you're very quick to check them that they don't get what this really is. What is this really that is not fearful to you as a capitalist?
Yeah, I think it's about affordability. Like your show, you've been talking about affordability, and that's why Democrats won. It's because Donald Trump promised affordability, and we're getting the opposite. So Mamdani won because New Yorkers, they're being driven out of New York because of rent prices. Their costs are skyrocketing in many big cities. So they voted for him not because of his views on Israel or Palestine. I mean, most of them didn't.
Half of them said it was very important to their vote.
Yeah, it's a fraction did, but also remember 30% of the Jewish population in New York favored Mamdani. So I think that says a lot as well. I think that
difference between a religious Jew and a cultural Jew when it comes to the Zionism issue. But look, on socialism, you're right. You're right. Young people who haven't been in the city a long time voted for him overwhelmingly. Maybe his strongest group other than foreign born, which doesn't mean what it does to some on the right, to me. I don't see that as code for illegals. I don't buy that BS. I think that it's foreign born and that he does have a synergy with them, and they respect the way people respected my father being first generation in the country coming up. It meant something to people. I'm okay with that. But in terms of the fixes, Ed, to bounce it back to you, free, tax the rich, it's just not that simple.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be hard to tax the rich. As a mayor of New York City, you're going to have to get city council, the state legislature, even the governor of New York to be on your side. And I think that's going to be hard to do. When it comes to free public transportation, rent stability, I think that's something he can do. And I think most New Yorkers are supporting that, especially Gen Z. Gen Z is having trouble getting jobs. Gen Z sees different problems than the rest of us see, and I think that's why they identify so much with their candidate. I think there's a differing view, and they support Mamdani in that he supports them.
Mm-hmm. Listen, to me, it is the mirror image of MAGA. I mean, he checks all the same boxes Trump did. More personality than pedigree. He's a disruptor. The system doesn't like him. He identifies with people that he does not share a lived experience with. The guy's never had a hard day in his life. Neither had Trump. But people are desperate for better. And that's why I'm on this movement. Not because it beat my brother. I get that the Democrats didn't want what Andrew wants it to be about right now. That's the way it goes. But the city deserves better. I'll be watching. He deserves a chance because he won it. Brian, Ed, let's keep the conversation going. And man, you put me to shame. Look how nice the growth is that you guys have. And look at mine. I look like my grandmother if she was having a bad day. I'll talk to you later. Guys, thank you very much. 4 minutes and 30 seconds. As I said from the start, I've spent a lot of time with border agents, okay? They are different than so much of the rest of the law enforcement I've worked with in terms of their attachment to the people and the cultural dynamics and the pain, okay? But you have to call out when it looks horrible, okay? What just happened in Chicago, I don't get it. It's a daycare teacher arrested by ICE, allegedly in front of the kids. Why? Why her? Why that way? To me, I don't want to condemn before we confront. So let's have the conversation. I don't get it. Explain to me. Why is this what we need? Let's talk to two men who have done the job, who know better than I do. Next.
I am horrified by what has happened here today. Our community has been shattered. Our families have been traumatized. The children were crying, the parents were crying. It's a scene that I don't think any of us have ever witnessed before and will ever forget.
Now, first of all, the other day I had an official on who said, look, we want to send a message. If you're here illegally, we're going to find you. And it has a deterrent effect. It's safe to say the message has been sent. We have officials out here where I live in an area called Hampton Bays. And it is known for having a lot of new immigrants, okay? And I have gotten a lot of calls from people who are here legally who are afraid. Now, should they be if they're here legally? No, in quotes. And then you see something like this. That was the mother of a child. She's not an issue for the police, right? But her kid is there, and her kid had to experience this, and this teacher who she likes had to experience this. Remember, not everybody who comes here, even if they came illegally, came the wrong way, does something wrong once they're here. Many of them are doing things the right way. So, trusted, beloved member of the community was arrested this way while teaching at a daycare center. She has a work permit based on a pending application for asylum. Okay? She says she ran into the daycare center after fleeing a car chase with federal agents who were trying to detain her. Witnesses claim ICE agents grabbed the door as she ran inside and dragged her back outside where she was handcuffed and put into a waiting SUV. Now, this looks terrible. So, what makes it okay? Why is this what we need? I don't defer, but I want to discuss with two men who did the job, whom I respect very much. Former acting ICE director under President Obama, John Sandweg, and the man who ran Homeland Security for a year in the first Trump administration, Chad Wolf. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Let me be very clear. I know these guys, neither of these guys are laughing and thinking this is a great look. I love it. I love it. I promise you that. But, Chad, let's just start with, if you were in charge, what would you say about this particular operation?
Well, I think the facts matter here, and the facts are that ICE tried to pull this individual over along with a male driver as a traffic stop, had the lights on, they fled. They fled into a shopping center and then exited the car and ran into the daycare. So these individuals absconded from law enforcement, ICE immigration agents in this case. And so I think we need to be very clear that this is an individual that's here illegally in the country, ran from law enforcement, ran into a daycare center and tried to barricade herself into a daycare center. So what we should be outraged about is actually this individual putting those children in harm's way and actually fleeing into this daycare center. ICE has a mission given to them by Congress where they need to execute on. In this case, they had a target. They tried to pull him over outside of this daycare center, but the individual fled into the center and ICE went in to apprehend her.
So, John, the best defense for these guys is they didn't know that that's where she works. They didn't know that she wasn't like she was in front of the class with the kids and they yanked her out of that. That's an unfair narrative. And this is how it goes when you run for the cops. Is that how you see it, too?
Chris, I got to tell you, if I was at ICE right now, I'd ask these guys, what were you thinking, right? Listen, there are legitimate questions to be raised here. This lady had an asylum claim. She's not like an illegal immigrant like we think about it. She was waiting on her court date. She had a work authorization card to allow her to work there. But set aside whether you think those are good targets right now. Set that aside. What is the value to the agency of effectuating an arrest like this in front of a bunch of kids? And I understand Chad's point. It is frustrating when you flee from law enforcement, but you got to think of the optics here. We can pick this lady up at the end of the day when she goes home. We can pick this lady up tomorrow morning in her apartment, but to pick her up in front of a bunch of kids like this and to have that mother out here talking about how everyone was scared to death, all we're doing is giving ammunition to our critics. You have to think about the agency and the reputation of the agency. We're in an era, Chris, when these agents, these are good Americans who signed up for this job to make this country safer. They're getting beat up badly, but they're getting accused of being masked thugs. What do? We storm into a daycare center wearing masks and haul out the teacher who has a work authorization card. All we're doing is giving ammo to the critics. So let's just be smart. That's what I would say to them.
Well, you know what somebody said to me today, Chad, that I also think was interesting, and I want you to use this context. he said to me, and what happens if they didn't? And she doesn't work there, and they had no idea that she worked there. I don't know if that's true or not, but she goes in there and she doesn't work there, and she does things to one of the kids, and they had stayed outside because they didn't like the optics. Right. Now what are you saying?
Yeah, I mean, this argument that you shouldn't pursue a target because it's a daycare or it's another facility, it's crazy. Never local police that pull someone over and that individual starts speeding away and goes into a facility somewhere else, we don't tell our local police or our local sheriffs to stop. Stop what you're doing. Think about the optics. Even though that individual may be very dangerous, we don't know what they're going to do. Of course, we don't put those restrictions on them. We ask them to do their job, and we need to support them to do their job. It should be the same way when it comes to immigration enforcement. So I don't subscribe to this notion that because the optics of this arrest looks bad. They didn't do anything wrong. They didn't break the law. They did exactly what they're trained to do, and that is to make sure that as you pull someone over and they run from you, you don't know if they have a weapon. You don't know what's going on and who they're going to hurt. So absolutely, I continue to believe they did the right thing here.
My question is this. I'll end it on this. I need to know why was she on their list if she had the permit off of an asylum claim? Had it expired? What was it? Because that's what matters, is who are you choosing to go after? Because we both know one thing, and I've even had this happen to me in ways that I'll never disclose, and I will deny if anybody finds it. If you get into it with a law enforcement officer and you do not comply, it gets ugly pretty fast. And that's not always wrong. It's what you're asking for sometimes also. So I want to know more on that piece, and then I'll understand this piece in context. So we'll pick up the conversation when we know more. But Chad, I appreciate you presenting it the way you do. And John, I appreciate you entertaining it the way you did. Thank you both. Appreciate you. 4 minutes and 15 seconds. What do you think? You mad at me because of what I said about Ozempic? Are you mad at me because I didn't condemn everybody when I don't know everything about the situation? Are you mad because I'm not picking one side and saying they're the ones to be for with affordability because the other side of the problem? You say. 844-968-7720. I'm here for it. Doesn't have to be easy. Let's get after it. Look, Dusty's going to give me phone calls. Good to see you, my friend. But I will say this. I'll feel a lot better about what ICE is doing and how they're doing it when they start arresting people who entice these people over and hire them for sub-market wages and don't give them protections and don't pay in through their taxes the way they're supposed to as employers. When they start going after those people, that's the root cause, not people who are desperate enough to come here. All right? Who do you got?
She's going to feel a lot better when she lets you have it right now. Go ahead, Mary. Let him have it.
Mary, let me have it.
I'm really disappointed in you. I thought you were open-minded. On the Ozempic issue, I'm appalled and I'm taking umbrage at the fact that you called obese people fat and lazy. Now, just because you're a gym rat in the prime of your life doesn't mean that people aren't getting medical benefits from using the GLP-1s. They were originally marketed for weight reduction for really wealthy people who could afford to pay for it. I was an athlete my entire life. I played softball till I was 67 years old. I'm now 74. I'm a great-grandma, and I have a medical issue that pertains to how my body burns my calories. I had a sample of one of the GLPs for a month, and it absolutely eliminated severe back pain that I had. I used my sample. Good. I'm on Medicare. I can't afford to pay thousands of dollars a month to self-pay, and Medicare does not cover any kind of benefits or grants or anything.
And hopefully it will now. Mary, first of all, I'm with you, and I understand why you're upset at me, and I get it. You're not who I was talking about, and you were listening, but you got upset when you were listening to me, is my guess, and you didn't listen as closely. If you have a medical condition, whether it's diabetes or what you just described, that's different. The idea that the affordability issue of getting food and health care is going to be solved in any real way by allowing people to take Ozempic is a joke. And the idea that we should be encouraging people to lose weight by taking a shot with a drug that we don't know how it will affect them over time, because it's only been studied with people with specific conditions, is also a little risky. For you, Mary, I'm happy that it's helping you, and I hope the change gets you easier access to it. But you're not who I was talking about. And do I have a little bit of a bias against people who I think are trying to take a quick way out? And have I watched people who don't do the fitness part, who aren't taking care of themselves and think that this is some magic solution? Yeah, I've seen bad results. So I'm worried about that too. But I'm sorry I offended you. I didn't mean to, Mary. If I meant to, I would own it and I'd say, too bad you don't like it. I don't want to offend you, especially when it's helped you and you needed it. Okay? Thank you for calling me and setting me straight. It is short-sighted depending on who we're talking about. That's my point. I don't think it's short-sighted as a substitute for doing it the hard way. That's my point. But I appreciate you. Thank you. We'll be right back. Of course, people don't have phone calls where someone attacks them and says you're making fun of fat people. This show is different. I am different. Now, obviously, it's not my point. Right here, we try to champion the underdog's causes. But look, I'm just telling you, if you think that Ozempic is a good affordability play for this administration, you have not gotten the plot straight yet. Leland Vittert knows the deal, and he starts right now.
Good to see you, my friend. As always, you and your ever-growing mustache. Donate to Chris so this sometimes ends. Thank you, friends.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our News Nation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.